Now, this comes as Donald Trump is pitching a new tariff that could cost an iconic American company big money.
Donald Trump just dropped a bombshell that has the machinery world buzzing. He proposed a jaw-dropping 200% tariff on John Deere tractors made in Mexico, and now all eyes are on Kubota. This isn't just another trade spat. It's a move that could shake up global supply chains, drive up costs for farmers, and throw one of the biggest names in heavy machinery into chaos. With Trump's America's First agenda charging ahead, the question isn't whether Kubota can survive, but whether it can thrive in a world where the rules are constantly changing. So is this the end of the road for Kubota, or can they turn the tide?
I mean, ultimately what the president wants is to move from a world of massive structural trade imbalances driven by unfair trade practices to a world where we have pro-growth driven by free trade that is fair and reciprocal.
If you followed his presidency, you probably remember his bold moves on trade, slapping tariffs on steel, aluminum, and Chinese goods like he was making a point on every global trade map. Trump's reasoning? He wanted to protect American industries, bring manufacturing back home, and level the playing field against what he called unfair trade practices. And honestly, to some industries it worked. But the ripple effects were felt far and wide, especially by companies like Kubota.
They've announced a few days ago that they're going to move a lot of their manufacturing business to Mexico. I'm just notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States, so that if I win, John Deere is going to be paying a 200%.
Trump's latest proposals, including a jaw-dropping 200% tariff on John Deere tractors made in Mexico, have set the machinery industry abuzz. Imagine being a farmer trying to buy a new tractor and suddenly realizing it's twice as expensive. Trump's tariffs aren't just targeting random sectors, they're aimed squarely at industries dependent on imports. Now Kubota, the Japanese machinery giant, is under the microscope. Here's the kicker. Trump's America First policy, a cornerstone of his presidency, isn't just about bringing jobs back to the US. It's about giving domestic companies a leg up while making things tougher for foreign competitors. For a company like Kubota, which relies heavily on global supply chains and imported parts, this is a potential nightmare. Trump's vision is crystal clear: boost US production, challenge imports, and make American goods the go-to choice. And while that sounds great for local manufacturers like John Deere, for Kubota, it's more like walking a tightrope.
During his campaign, Trump vowing to set a 60% tariff on Chinese imports and a 10 to 20% tariff on imports from everywhere else.
Talking about Kubota might be sweating bullets under Trump's trade policies. First off, the company's entire business model leans heavily on its global supply chain. A significant portion of Kubota's parts come from places like Japan, India, and Thailand. This international network has helped Kubota stay competitive in the machinery market, but also make them incredibly vulnerable to tariffs. If Trump pushes forward with his plans to increase tariffs on Chinese goods or other imports, Kubota's costs could skyrocket. Suddenly, producing a tractor for the US market becomes a lot more expensive. And guess who ends up paying more? That's right, the farmers and businesses that rely on Kubota's machinery. But it doesn't stop there. Kubota has already had a brush with trouble in the US. Remember that $2 million fine they got hit with by the FTC? Some of their parts were falsely labeled as made in the USA, and the Trump administration wasn't about to let that slide. That fine wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a warning shot. Under Trump's stricter trade regulations, companies like Kubota face more scrutiny than ever. One wrong move, and they're looking at more fines, damaged reputations, and even tighter rules to navigate.
To celebrate American manufacturing and to showcase the amazing products from all 50 states.
And let's not forget about the competition. While Kubota is busy dealing with tariffs and regulatory headaches, domestic brands like John Deere are sitting pretty. Trump's policies favor made-in-the-USA products, which give companies like Deere a massive advantage. They've got strong local manufacturing and loyal customers, and now the political climate working in their favor. For Kubota, this means an uphill battle to maintain its market share in the US. Imagine being in a race where your competitor gets a head start and a tailwind. That's the kind of challenge Kubota is staring down. With Trump's proposed tariff hikes, Kubota's costs could spiral out of control. Why? Because a huge part of their business relies on importing parts and equipment from overseas. If those imports suddenly come with a hefty price tag, Kubota's machinery might no longer be the affordable option that American farmers and businesses have relied on for years. Think about it. If Kubota tractors and heavy equipment become pricier, it's not just the company that feels the pinch. The farmers who use these tractors to plow fields or construction crews who depend on Kubota's equipment to get the job done will also be hit hard. Higher costs for Kubota means higher prices for consumers, and that's the kind of ripple effect that can shake up an entire industry. So what's Kubota's game plan? They're exploring the idea of setting up manufacturing facilities in the US. It sounds like a smart move on paper, avoiding tariffs by building equipment domestically. But let's not sugarcoat it. This is a massive undertaking. Setting up production facilities isn't just about finding a plot of land and building a factory. It involves hiring and training a workforce, navigating local regulations, and figuring out how to source materials domestically. All of this takes time and money, and it's a gamble that might not pay off immediately. And what about the farmers and small businesses that rely on Kubota's machinery? For them, these policies could be a double-edged sword. On one hand, a push for domestic manufacturing might eventually lead to more American-made options. On the other hand, in the short term, they're looking at potential delays, price hikes, and fewer choices. It's a tough spot to be in, especially for people who need reliable, affordable equipment to keep their businesses running. If the US slaps steep tariffs on imports, you can bet other countries won't just sit there and take it. Retaliatory tariffs are almost a given, and that's where things get dicey for companies like Kubota. As a global player, Kubota relies heavily on its international markets to keep its business thriving. If countries start imposing their tariffs in response, Kubota's ability to export its products could take a serious hit.
In markets, because one of the factors of the downturn in the domestic Chinese economy has been, and this is not unique to China, Korea did it in the past and Japan has done it in the past, it's kind of part of the economic model. When you don't have domestic demand, you export. And so they've been pushing out exports, essentially exporting deflation in certain categories, right? So the United States is not the only country that has a trade problem with China.
Take China, for instance. It's a major hub for manufacturing and a critical market for Kubota's operations. If trade tensions escalate, the cost of importing parts from China could skyrocket. This creates a domino effect: higher production costs, higher prices for consumers, and a potential dip in sales. It's not just a Kubota problem, though. These global trade battles could disrupt supply chains, create uncertainty, and even slow down economic growth in some regions. But let's not overlook the opportunities on the home front. Trump's push for infrastructure spending could be a silver lining for companies like Kubota. If the US starts investing heavily in roads, bridges, and other infrastructure projects, the demand for heavy machinery could shoot up. This is where Kubota could find its footing, by positioning itself as a key supplier for these projects. To make this work, though, Kubota needs a solid US strategy. Building stronger relationships with local suppliers, ramping up domestic production, and emphasizing their commitment to the American market could be a game changer. It's a tricky balancing act, navigating global challenges while capitalizing on domestic opportunities. Kubota knows it's facing an uphill battle with Trump's tariffs and trade policies. But instead of panicking, the company is rolling up its sleeves and coming up with strategies to stay ahead. And honestly, it's fascinating how a global giant like Kubota adapts to these kind of challenges. Since tariffs make importing parts more expensive, Kubota is doubling down on local sourcing and supplier diversification. This means they're looking for ways to get materials and components closer to home, cutting down on costs and avoiding those hefty tariffs. It's a smart move, but not an easy one. Building relationships with new suppliers and ensuring they meet the same quality standards takes time and effort, but Kubota seems determined to make it work. They're also tightening their ship when it comes to compliance. After that $2 million FTC fine for mislabeling products as made in the USA, Kubota isn't taking any chances. They're working harder than ever to make sure every label is accurate and every product meets regulatory standards. It's not just about avoiding fines, it's about rebuilding their reputation and proving to consumers that they're trustworthy. Nobody wants to buy a product that's been caught in a lie, and Kubota knows that. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.